In this video, we are going to rank every single scoped weapon in Fortnite history, but there's a little bit of a caveat, and that is that there will be no snipers on this list, simply because snipers would make up like 90% of this list, so yeah, they're not going to be included in this video. This video will strictly be every scoped weapon that is not a sniper. It's pretty simple. I'm sure many of you are wondering what I'm going to do with the Chapter 5 weapons, because some of them have scopes, some don't, but I'm just not going to include any Chapter 5 weapons on this list. Some people are going to be like, you know, Nisha Striker AR, that comes with the scope and you can't take it off, right? So that should be on this list. But honestly, it just makes everything so much more complicated. So for simplicity's sake, I am not going to include any Chapter 5 weapons on this list. If you're going to enjoy this video, be sure to leave it a like. Use code TYFRYZ in the Fortnite item shop as always. And yeah, let's get right into this. At the number 20 spot is the crossbow and Cupid's crossbow. I'm going to put them together since they're literally the same thing. In any list that includes the crossbow on my channel, it is almost always in last place, or at least the bottom 3 spots. It is really just a bad weapon overall. It's really outdated. There's a reason why you don't see the crossbow or Cupid's crossbow ever really come back to the game for the most part. There should be no surprises that this is in last place for this video. At the number 19 spot is a pistol, the scoped revolver. The scoped revolver is an interesting weapon because I always have like a little fan club of people in my comment section that really do enjoy this scoped revolver, and for me, I just don't think anybody was asking for a scoped pistol like this. It's just not needed. I would love this version of the revolver a lot more without the scope. I just don't understand why you would use this, right? If you want a long range weapon, use a sniper. If you want a close quarters weapon like a pistol, just use the regular pistol. I really don't understand the draw to this weapon. So obviously, with all that being said, it shouldn't surprise you at the number 18 spot, I'm going to put the Nighthawk. It's literally just the exotic version of the scoped revolver. It's the exact same thing, just chuck a thermal scope on it. I mean, cool, I guess, right? To me, it really doesn't change the weapon at all. It doesn't make it any more desirable. I think you could actually make the argument it makes it less desirable since you had to spend a ton of gold bars to get a weapon like this. It's got a cool name, but I mean, honestly, that's really all it's got going for it. At the number 17 spot is the Tactical DMR from Chapter 4 Season 4. I've made videos on forgotten about Fortnite weapons in the past, and the Tactical DMR should have been on that list, to be honest with you. It's actually the only weapon in Fortnite history to have an adjustable scope like that, where you could toggle multiple zooms in and out. I just honestly, I don't know what it is. That projectile, that bullet felt like it took forever to get to your target, almost like you had to lead your shots like you have to do in Chapter 5. And unfortunately, one of the best weapons of all time, the Twin Mag Assault Rifle, existed at the same time as this weapon, and so you are absolutely out of your mind if you were going to take the Tactical DMR over the Twin Mag AR. And so, yeah, maybe in a different season, the Tactical DMR could have shined a little bit more, but in Chapter 4, Season 4, no chance. At the number 16 spot is the regular DMR from Chapter 3, I believe it was introduced. I actually really like this weapon, and I think you could make the argument to move it a couple more spots higher on this list. It's actually a decent weapon. In the blue rarities and higher, it was doing 50 damage a bullet, so you could actually two-shot somebody, which is really, really good. It serves its purpose really well, right? It's a long-range alternative to a sniper rifle. My only complaint really is that it is incredibly slow. It just feels like those bullets take forever to get out of your weapon. That fire rate is brutal. I think it's got a fire rate of 2.5, which is, yeah, really slow, but I guess that's their way of balancing it, right? Because it's a high damage weapon. Anyways, moving on to the number 15 spot is the lock-on pistol, and I think I'm gonna get a little bit of kickback for this pick because the lock-on pistol isn't technically a scoped weapon, but once you aim down sights, you got that like unique tracking system, and of course the weapon does have a scope on it. It's just you don't directly go into the scope. It's really confusing, but since you do go into that like unique tracking system, I decided to add it onto this list. But I guess I could see why you don't think it belongs on this list, and that's totally understandable. It's just like a really weird weapon. In Chapter 4 Season 2, especially when people had katanas and ODM gear, the lock-on pistol felt pretty damn good. You had people flying around everywhere and you could lock on. It's just truly a weird Fortnite weapon. I don't know how else to explain it. There's nothing like it in the game's history. I personally was not the biggest fan of the weapon, but I can see how some people were. At the number 14 spot is the thermal scoped AR, and I'm honestly going to include both versions from Chapter 1 and Chapter 3. If I was just including the Chapter 1 version of the thermal scoped AR, this honestly might be my last pick on this video. The thermal scoped AR in Chapter 1 was horrible. Painfully slow fire rate, just everything about this weapon just screamed, do not pick me up at all. Take a SCAR, take a sniper, anything but the thermal scoped AR. But then it came back in Chapter 3 and actually got a pretty decent decent rework, right, where they sped up the fire rate a ton, lowered the damage, and it actually kind of became a useful weapon. Again, like, it still wasn't my favorite weapon to use, but it actually became serviceable. In Chapter 1, I think it was just down bad, horrendous. But in Chapter 3, it became usable. It is a really satisfying weapon to use, I will say that. At the number 13 spot is going to be the Cobra DMR from late Chapter 3. So you guys remember a couple minutes ago when I was just talking about the regular DMR and how I hated the fire rate on that weapon? Well, the Cobra DMR was supposed to be the solution to that. It was basically more of like an assault rifle hybrid than a DMR with a super fast fire rate, at least for a semi-automatic marksman rifle, right? It actually does have a decent DPS. In the Mythic version, a DPS of 184 is pretty good for a semi-automatic DMR. I'm not sitting here like saying the fire rate was crazy fast like a fully auto weapon. No, not at all. But it was definitely noticeably faster than the regular DMR, which I actually liked about it a lot. I still think in the grand scheme of Fortnite weapons, it's pretty mid, and it's really in the lower quadrant of this video. Honestly, I'm just a little bit biased against DMRs because I love snipers, and I take snipers 10 out of 10 times over DMRs. Anyways, at the number 12 spot on this list is the regular scoped assault rifle. And yeah, this weapon has seen so many changes, so many reworks, changes to its scope. I mean, I can't even begin to explain them all. If you'd like to see all the patch notes, go to the Fortnite wiki. They have literally everything there. I remember like in the early seasons of Chapter 1, like the scoped AR didn't even work. Like the bullets were coming out like 2 ticks lower than where your scope was. It was just terrible. And then like I specifically remember the best version of this weapon being the Chapter 2 Season 4 version, where they changed the scope to just that tiny red dot in the middle with like the 4 arrows going every other way, and they changed the sound of it, they buffed the damage, they gave it the purple and legendary versions. To me, that was like peak scoped AR, right? But unfortunately, that quote-unquote peak was still not high enough to take the scoped AR over the SCAR. It just feels a little clunky. I don't know how else to explain it. That's how I feel when I use the scoped AR. And I feel bad for this weapon at the number 11 spot because I have ripped on DMRs all video. It's the thermal DMR from Chapter 4, Season 3. I actually do believe this is the best version of the DMR we've ever seen. And the thermal aspect actually makes sense because the jungle biome was so dense and heavy and hard to see people that it actually did make sense to use a thermal scope on a DMR. And something I've talked about with DMRs here is the fire rate, right? The regular DMR has a fire rate of 2.5, the Cobra DMR has a fire rate of 4, and the thermal DMR has a fire rate of 5, which, if you include the damage, gives you a DPS of 200 flat for the Mythic version, which is really, really good. It sounded absolutely beefy, and I remember vividly having some really good moments absolutely frying people with this weapon, so I'll give the DMR credit when it deserves it, like this. Again, I just hate to sound like a broken record, but a lot of people just don't like DMRs. There are almost always better options for long-range engagements. And we have officially cracked the top 10 spot, and at the number 10 spot is the proximity grenade launcher. I bet you totally forgot this weapon had a scope. It is the only launcher in Fortnite history to have a scope, and that is probably a good thing. Although, I guess now, literally mid-recording, it just came to my head that the Anvil rocket launcher technically has a scope. It's kind of similar to the lock-on pistol, so I'm waiting for the people in the comment section to be like, you forgot the Anvil rocket launcher. Here I am admitting it now. The Anvil rocket launcher probably could have been in this video. But still, just forget about that. We're talking about the proximity grenade launcher here, and it was really unique. The rockets would only explode if they were near a target. If you shoot it at a wood wall and there was nobody behind the wall or to the sides of it, it won't explode. The rocket will literally just bounce off the wall. To me, I actually really like this weapon because it didn't ever feel like a launcher. It felt more like a hybrid weapon, and it was decently good. It was really easy to use. I like the proximity grenade launcher, but it's a shame we have barely seen it in Fortnite history ever. At the number 9 spot is going to be the scoped burst SMG. You know, honestly, I hate to be that guy. I just don't know who was asking for a scope on a burst SMG. I mean, a burst SMG on its own is weird enough, but then to chuck a pretty decently high zoom scope on top of that is kind of weird. I mean, I think the best way to do the scoped burst SMG style weapon is how they did it in Chapter 5 with the thunder burst and then just taking like a red dot. Like, to me, that makes sense. This weapon wasn't that bad, to be honest with you. It didn't have a place in the game, in my opinion. if you need a scope to use an SMG, especially a somewhat high zoom scope for a close quarters weapon, just use an assault rifle at that point, right? And again, this is another weapon that unfortunately falls victim to the twin mag assault rifle. It's just like, if you're going to use a scoped weapon that season, we all know what it was. So why would you ever take the scoped burst sub? Anyways, at the number 8 spot is what I believe to be a complete sleeper pick on this list. From chapter 4, it's the tactical assault rifle. And honestly, the only reason why it's at number 8 and not within the top 5 is simply because the tactical AR in chapter 4 was really kind of rare to get. You could only get it from the tactical armory augment, the one that would drop this version of the TAC AR and the combat shotgun. Other than that, there was no way that you could get your hands on this weapon. And that really sucks, because I think this version of the tactical assault rifle does not get enough love for being an elite weapon. It was so good. Literally no bloom, great fire rate, uses light bullets as well for your assault rifle spot, and especially in a season like season 1, when people were bouncing around with shockwave hammers, you needed an accurate pinpoint weapon, and to me, it was this weapon. The problem was, it was tough to get your hands on it. Moving on to our number 7 spot on this list, another exotic, it's the heisted explosive assault rifle, otherwise known by a lot of you as just the heisted red-eye assault rifle. So yeah, this weapon is actually in Fortnite Reload right now, if you've ever seen it, and it's really good. I just have a couple problems with it. I think for one is the bullet travel time. It takes so long for your bullet to get there. Like, it's a projectile, right? It's not like a hit scan weapon like the regular red-eye is. Of course, you get the benefit of, if you can hit that shot, getting explosive damage. I think it does 70 damage, I want to say, to the body. You also get splash damage, which is huge. The fire rate, though, has been significantly nerfed from the red-eye to this version of the weapon, and you get less bullets in a mag. So it's just kind of pick your poison here. Personally, I like the regular red-eye better than the exotic version, but I could see you wanting to flip that around, and I totally understand that. Anyways, at our number 6 spot is the striker burst rifle from chapter 3. And okay, let me just clear up what weapon I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the Chapter 3 Season 2 version, and that includes the mythic variant Sloan's Striker Burst Rifle, not to be mistaken with Chapter 2 Season 8's version of strictly Sloan's Burst Assault Rifle. I don't know why they use the same exact weapon model, literally the same name, but they are fundamentally different weapons. And of course, I am not talking about the Chapter 5 Striker Burst Rifle. Again, uses the same exact weapon model, but I am not including Chapter 5 weapons on this list. I gotta be honest with you, this is a weapon to me that I really only saw used a lot in zero build. This weapon was a zero build demon. It has a pitifully slow fire rate, but you do get really solid damage, and it shoots in bursts of 2, right? So think about it in the purple version, for example, you're doing 32 damage a shot. So if you land back-to-back body shots, that's 64 damage in the snap of your fingers. It just has a ton of like that really bouncy recoil. It goes flying up in the air. So if you can maintain that recoil, you're going to love this weapon. At the number 5 spot is the red-eye assault rifle. So yeah, obviously you just heard me talk about the exotic version of this weapon, and I do genuinely believe that the regular red-eye is better than that. When I talk about wanting hit scan weapons back in Fortnite, this is like the weapons that I'm talking about. Those long range, as long as you have your red dot on them, you're going to do damage. Those satisfying weapons. This is one of those. I actually am a red-eye assault rifle stan, and it's funny because I was watching Ninja's video the other day where he's kind of like going over all the Fortnite seasons, or chapters rather, and he starts glazing the red-eye assault rifle, and the zero build players love this weapon. It's pretty simple. If you have good aim, you are going to fry with this weapon. You know, talking about it actually makes me miss the red-eye just a little bit more. At the number 4 spot is the MK Alpha assault rifle from Chapter 4 Season 3. I really don't have a lot to say with this weapon. It is literally just a worse version of the MK7. It's of course still a solid option for an assault rifle. It's just a red dot assault rifle. It's just worse than the MK7. I don't know what else to say, right? It's decent. Like, it's got a bunch of like super bouncy recoil, but if you can hold that right stick down, you're going to do some serious work. It's, for obvious reasons, just not as good as the MK7, which we'll talk about later in this video. And I actually kind of misnumbered this list. There is actually no number 3 spot. It just goes straight to number 2. So let's talk about it. It's the twin mag assault rifle. There is clearly a really solid argument for the twin mag to be number 1 on this list. I mean, I think you guys probably have an inkling what the number 1 spot is going to be, but this twin mag assault rifle is in my top 5 favorite weapons of all time. I think it's probably also a top 5 assault rifle of all time. Just like, what a sick weapon. It is awesome to use. They do something right with twin mag weapons. That's all I'm going to say, because the twin mag SMG is also a beast. There is a solid chance that we'll never see the twin mag assault rifle come back in Fortnite just because it was so good and so strong. Zero build mode, it genuinely doesn't matter. The twin mag assault rifle dominated in either of them. There should be zero questions in the comment section about why the twin mag assault rifle is so high. If you were there, you understand how good this weapon was. But there is just absolutely no way I could put it over the number 1 spot. In my opinion, the most iconic scoped weapon in Fortnite history, it's the MK7 assault rifle, right? It had to be here. Pre-nerf, post-nerf, I don't really care. The MK7 is unbelievable. Seriously, like, do not even get me started on the Foundation's Mythic MK7. In its peak, that is the best Fortnite weapon of all time, I would argue. If you are playing Reload and you get your hands on this weapon, use it. You will see how good it is. I still have trouble wrapping my head around the fact that this weapon in its launch state actually came out like that. It was just indescribably good. Even post-nerf, I still think it's one of the best assault rifles of all time, and surely the best non-sniper, of course, scoped weapon in Fortnite history. And yeah, guys, that is my list for every single scoped weapon, of course, that aren't snipers. If you guys go on to enjoy this video, be sure to leave it a like. As always, push this video out. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.